In his latest Economy Matters column, Christoph Schumacher examines the relationship between GDP and unemployment. Christoph, you start off by looking at something called Okun's law. What is this?
Oh, it's simply some research done in the 60s by a very famous US economist, and he actually was the first to start investigating the link between GDP, or the productivity of a country, and employment rates. And he figured out a very precise percentage, actually, that a 1 percentage point drop in GDP will change unemployment or drop by about 3 percentage points.
How do you see this relates to New Zealand's current situation?
Well, just recently we had our latest GDP figures, and along came also our unemployment figures. And we saw that GDP dropped more than we actually anticipated, and also unemployment went up. So I thought, hey, maybe we should look back at that research done in the 60s to see whether our drop in GDP could explain the rise in unemployment, and it pretty much can.
So you think Okun's law is fairly accurate?
It is still used, and we now have these specific coefficients for pretty much every country in the developed world anyway. So you can actually check out what New Zealand's coefficient is. And the further the coefficient is from zero, the more flexible your labor market actually is. That means a change in GDP has a stronger impact on unemployment. Whereas if the coefficient is fairly small, then if your GDP drops, it won't impact on the labor market at all.
Mm-hmm. So using this Okun's law, what are you predicting is going to happen in New Zealand over the next couple of years?
Well, first of all, New Zealand ranks more on the higher scale, meaning the labour market is quite flexible. It suggests that our labour laws also aren't as strict as in some other countries. If you go, for example, more to Germany, France, or Singapore, where there's a much smaller coefficient, it means people are stronger protected in case companies sell less and make losses. Companies can't easily let people go. Whereas in New Zealand is more on the higher end, close to similar to the United States or Australia. Australia is even more flexible. Thus, it means firms that don't make enough money respond by letting people go more easily. And that's what we have just seen recently. Our quarterly rate dropped by minus 0.6%, and unemployment rose from 3.3 to 3.4%.
Mm-hmm. You did point to in your column that when there is a recession, often women are less likely to initially lose their jobs, but they find it harder to find jobs once they have lost their initial job. So how does this all work in with what you're seeing now?
Well, research has been done not just on countries, but also different demographic characteristics such as gender and age, for example. So we actually do see that if your GDP drops, the first to lose their jobs are young male and then younger females. And later on, the most protected seem to be females. That is good if your GDP drops, because they're the last ones to tend to lose their jobs. But it also means if the economy picks up, they also find it the most difficult to find employment again. And we see this also in New Zealand. The latest drop in GDP had a much stronger impact on male losing their jobs rather than females.
Why is this? Is it the type of jobs that are getting cut?
Possibly it's simply the kind of jobs or in the positions people are actually in that seem to be most likely affected. And it's no surprise that we see the youngest losing their job the earliest, because these will be people on sort of the minimum wage, on more looser contracts, and these are the first to go. We see these things when the economy slows down. We see these things also when we, for example, increase the minimum wage. The first that lose their jobs are the ones with sort of at the bottom of the career ladder, that are mostly on sort of the minimum wages.
Mm-hmm. Now, recent global events has shown us that banks aren't immune to fail, and that New Zealand's economy is still on a bit of a roller coaster ride. How do you think overall we are shaping up to cope?
It was a big shock to the banking system worldwide. Actually, we don't expect or don't see US banks fall over, and definitely not Swiss banks. which was a surprise. There was concern that this might send ripple effects throughout the world, but the New Zealand banking sector is very solid, very stable. So there was no real concern that it would reach New Zealand, and it hasn't. And I don't think anyone actually will believe there is a direct impact. But again, a loss in confidence in our banking system is never good for the economy. We want strong banks because they are the guys who provide the initial funding for companies, which all help to increase our GDP and productivity. So we want banks that are strong and we have faith in. And the roller coaster ride, yes, of course, we had seen a strong third quarter last year. So there was expectation of a slight slowdown, but still we believed the economy to grow, and it didn't, so it's down. But the outlook is actually positive again. We hope that the first quarter of this year will pick up again. So this is the roller coaster ride we expected, and we'll probably expect for the rest of the year as well. It will be sort of an up and down, especially with interest rates probably changing, the OCR changing again, and inflation still not under control as much as we'd like to see it. So I think this year will still be an up and down from quarter to quarter.
Christoph, thanks for your time.
You're welcome.